for the. Yes.
I saw that.
Hi, Jen. Welcome.
I mean, it's been in town, you know.
Hi,
but-
guys.
Hi. You want one else?
Yes, please.
No, it's not fun.
Thank you.
I'll leave the rest up here. You want to change the name?
All right, I will change.
Well, I mean, that's all right. I think it has more to do with when you enter this. 20, there's certain age, I think. But I think you.
There we go.
You have it.
I got it,
with
Jen.
you at 5,
Aaron?
I think.
Got it, good.
Such as it is.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
join.
it's like $150 a month.
Okay.
But still, I'm
Meeting
taking-
to order, it's 4:04 on May 1st, 2024. The first order of business, the approval of minutes of the April 5, 2024 meeting. Your motion to accept the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Hold on. Why is it?
What do you-
I one second. I had to mute it because I have to be able to screen share Chris's presentation, but I have to
Oh.
join Zoom to be able to do that. You're just moving faster than my fingers.
We will slow down.
But we're okay. We're all caught up. Sorry about that.
Chris, well, thank you very much for coming here. And even though we have you as number 6, we're going to move you right up to number 4. Go for it, please. If you will introduce yourself, and maybe we should introduce ourselves. I mean, and because you know us in the room.
Hi, Chris, Anthony Amplo.
Francine Larson.
And she is vice chair, Mark Edmiston, chair.
Bennett Pudlin.
Molly Fahey.
Heather Noblin.
Yeah.
Yes, I know you, Chris. And Heather is our director, our assistant director of senior services and beach and rec. And Molly is, what is your?
Social services at Youth and Family.
Okay, good. I couldn't remember what your official title was. I know it's youth and family, but you know what I mean.
I did.
So if you do have a presentation, maybe we should just start with you, and then we'll have some questions and dialogue after that.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I am Chris Whitmer, and my organization is Green Planet Company. We're a 501c3 nonprofit from Guilford. And I know Erin from Guilford and invited her to come and take a look at our recently completed project on State Street, walking distance to town, not far from the center.
Looks very nice, by the way.
Yeah, well, thank you, thanks. The Great Hill Cottage community. So very quickly, Green Planet Company is a local nonprofit. We were founded in 2018 by myself and 2 other people. We've since increased our board to include 7 people of varying backgrounds and experience. This was our first project. It's just about ready to be occupied. So we're at the very end. We're jumping through hoops to get people into the houses. Anyhow, it was a piece of property just north of 95, I-95 on State Street. And it was heavily wooded. There was an old estate there. It's the Bullard estate. The house had fallen into somewhat of disrepair. So the first thing we did, it was 15 acres. And the first thing we did was we subdivided the property, the house getting 3 acres. And then the front 2 parcels were sort of split off. And then the back is the Great Hill Cottage community. So we decided to do the project in 2 phases.
Who owned the property? Excuse me. Who owned the property?
It was owned by the original family, by the
Oh, still?
Bullards. Yeah, I mean, they'd owned it since like 1910. The house is
So you bought it from them.
bought it from them. And the sale of the house in 3 acres helped buy down the cost of the land for our development, because our goal was to create affordable home ownership we were gonna do 10 houses. We actually ended up doing 9, but that's sort of another story. Anyhow, we did it in 2 phases. The first phase was the first 2 houses that were basically fee simple lots. So code compliant, the front lot is 1 acre, the lot behind is 1.5 acres. And that sort of got things kicked off. And part of our, I think you can go on to the next slide. The project itself came about, became interested in cottage communities, which are springing up all over the country. This is one that I visited in Concord, Mass. It's a 10 unit or 10 home cottage community. The zoning here was such that they could cluster the houses close together and create a green space in the midst of a, I wouldn't say it was a dense urban environment, but it was, it was fairly, fairly dense. And I just like the concept of people, of clustering the homes and creating some open space and some garden space. So that's what kind of got us started on the idea, the concept. If you want to go to the next slide.
Are those the actual photos of the?
Yeah, so
Development?
these are the houses that are those houses. And with land at a premium, the idea of creating affordable houses means that you need to work closely with the zoning department to kind of allow for sort of denser home advantages. But what I liked about these is they're relatively small. They're like 1,300 to 1,500 square feet. And the style is sort of New England cottage style, which also appeals to me. So anyhow, so this was our site. You can see that there's the original house, and their 3 acres includes a little sliver of the pond that was on the property. These front 2 houses were phase 1, so they were subdivided. And then we had 9 acres in the back that was to become the cottage community. And
the ones in the front are market rate.
no, they were, well, they could have been. We started with that idea. But originally we thought we could get 10 homes in the back. But given site constraints, a lot of ledge, there were just a lot of site issues that prevented us from going much more than we did. So yeah, the first 2 houses were completed in 2022 and sold that year. We are working with the Neighborhood Housing Services, New Haven. They're another 501c3, and they help us do the marketing and the pre-qualification of the people that were buying. But we had a waiting list of like 12 people for houses that weren't even built yet. So we knew the market was there for these. And then the houses in the back, that section in the back was to become phase 2. So you can go on to the next. Total of 9 2- and 3-bedroom homes for families at 80 to 100% of the area median income. That in the greater New Haven metropolitan area, which Guilford is, I'm not sure Madison is.
Yes.
It is. Equates to, for a family of 4, it's about $95,000 a year in income. What we like about this is that folks go out and get their own mortgages. So they have to qualify for a mortgage through a private bank or lending company. So our marketed, so as you can see, phase 1 and phase 2, the 2 homes were on separate lots. We got a lot of our funding through Capital for Change out of Wallingford. They're a statewide funding agency for nonprofits developing affordable homes. And our marketed sales prices on the whole complex were $250 to $275. The houses are all built to DOE Net Zero Energy Ready program standards. So that means that they're super well insulated and super airtight, with lots of double glazed window, like heavily the thermal envelope is robust. And so we know part of the deal was we didn't want to create homes that used a lot of energy because that costs the people moving in money. So we want to keep that to a minimum. And it really doesn't cost that much more to make an energy efficient home, maybe a little, but we got some funding from Eversource in order to accomplish that. The homes are all deed restricted for future sales for a 30-year period. So when you move in, you get your mortgage, you can sell the property immediately, but you can only recapture a certain amount of the appreciation, which keeps the homes affordable over a long period of time. So we worked with the town of Guilford to establish a deed restricted affordable housing property tax ordinance, which we modeled after Madison, by the way. It helps because in my mind, it wasn't really fair to put people into a home and restrict the resale on the home and still have it be appraised or assessed at a market value. So our goal was to create these homes so that the housing expense of the people moving into them wouldn't exceed 30% of their income. And that has helped, the tax abatement program has really helped to us in that area. Especially since when we started this, mortgage rates were like 4%, and now they're
Less.
north of 7%. Yeah, so I should also mention that when we started phase one, it was at the beginning of COVID, so it was a nightmare to get people to actually come to the site and do work, but we persevered. And as I mentioned before, we're exploring new and innovative methods of construction to reduce construction costs, and I'll show you some of those.
Before you move on, can you
Yes.
just clarify, you said 80 to 100%. Does your agreement with the town dictate how many at 80 and how many at market or at 100?
It does and it doesn't. So they wanted to see probably 60% of them needed to be people at 80% in order for the town to meet their 10% affordable housing goals. It turns out that all of ours were in that range. There were no market rate homes in this development, so they were all at 80%.
So, but going forward, somebody wants to sell, do they have to sell at 80, someone's at 80%?
If somebody comes in and their family is at 80% and they're approved at that level, they can sell to the next family only at 80%. Not.
So at this point, you're 100% at 80%, so all the resales will be at 80%.
Yeah, I think some families are 100%. Now, the tax credit program the town established is for people at no more than 80%. So the folks that bought in are at 100% don't necessarily qualify for a tax abatement.
So I guess to clarify that your affordability plan that you have for and I can't remember this from when you submitted it with your application, how many are all of the units deed restricted?
They are, yes. Yeah, all
So
nine.
how do you, so 100% is not a restriction? If
Well,
you're-
it is in that we use DOH Housing Trust Fund dollars as a subsidy for the program. So each house received a certain amount of money.
Because of their funding source, they're,
Yeah, so we can only go up to 100%. So that means this whole complex can go all the way up to 100%, but not exceed 100%.
And none of it counts for the 830G unless it's at 80%.
Yes, and so fortunately, most of our houses most of our initial buyers were 80%. So the town, chipped away. I mean, it's only a 9-unit project and it's, the deficit is much larger than that. So, but the town did benefit from the 80% homes. So,
So just, we wrestled with the idea of people owning, we really focus more on rentals than anything else, it's a lot
Yeah.
easier to deal with. But let's say somebody buys the house and they're 80%, they can only sell to somebody who is at 80% of the thing, so 10 years from now, you take a number and that's the value of the house, it's basically based on that 80% number.
correct. Now you can recapture, we wanted people who moved in here to have some sense of equity building.
Right.
So the equity can go up in that, but provided that somebody 10 years down the road who's at 80% of the area median income, which we assume is going to go up,
Let's assume, yeah.
yeah, could afford a larger mortgage and could therefore contribute to the original buyer's equity.
But only based on that 80% number is what we're
Right.
looking at.
Yeah,
But their equity would grow with the
But
rise in the amount.
that's exactly right, yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, okay.
And when they're calculating the resale value or the sale value, is it based off of the 80% or 100%? And is it like 80% multiplied by like
30.
3 to get to what the sales price is? Because that's how a lot of.
We have, yeah, we have some developments that their maximum sales price is 3 times AMI. Like they've just broke it out that way. They're older developments from the 90s,
Yeah.
but that's how we would calculate maximum sales price. The other ones, we would use, the
DOH
Excel
calculator,
spreadsheet, yeah, exactly, the DOH.
Well, I think in some ways
calculations.
it goes back to that 30% of household income. Your home expense can exceed 30%. So,
Okay.
it all has to be sort of weighed out in the end, and that's where that tax abatement program comes in.
And neighborhood
probably the
housing
calculation.
works is your administrator
Correct.
of your
Yeah,
affordability
yeah.
plan. Okay.
So, and they're gonna help manage the project. We're staying on for a year as the quote-unquote property manager. Not so much for phase 1, which they're sort of independent. But the cottage community in the rear, which is comprised of 7 homes, is part of an HOA and we wanted to make sure that it was off to a reasonable start before we turned it over. But we have insisted that they maintain a property over the long term. It's part of the deed, so. Okay, so.
And who enforces the pricing if you were to resell? I mean, if the property manager, is that the person?
Yeah,
responsible for it?
that NHS is gonna jump in and pre-qualify people.
Scares you.
Pre-qualify. That's usually me that does that, so.
And then it's ultimately the Planning and Zoning Commission because it's approved as a special exception use through the Planning and Zoning Commission
Right,
under their affordable housing section.
yeah,
in their
So, yeah, but- So in
regulations.
other words, this, you were talking about, the work involved in dealing with all this kind of stuff within the town government. So
It is
I'm
the town,
thinking-
it does still come back on the town.
But the managing agent then presents the numbers to the town rather than somebody sitting down and calculating it.
yeah, I think, so for example, if somebody wanted to sell in 5 years, we would go back to NHS and say, who have you got at 80% of the area median income, who might be interested in buying this house? We would then have their income documented in some form, whether by tax returns or W-2s,
Right.
which we would have as evidence of their income level. So they would then be pre-qualified by NHS to take
Yeah.
over, to.
Is there language in the affordability plan of annual reports to the P and Z Commission? We have that in some of ours, and that's a way of
Yeah.
accountability, that the town is receiving updates from the administrator
Yeah,
of,
Arguably violating that would jeopardize the tax abatement, right?
well, the tax abatement actually
is
is
your
an annual-
funding
Yeah, it
source
is an
also.
annual review, so that goes without saying. I believe that DOH also requires us to do annual, sort of
I
monitoring.
feel like it,
I
just
think
because of your funding
As I
source.
recall, NHS had a different name a while ago, and they did prior work in Guilford.
You're thinking of,
Neighbor
NeighborWorks New Horizons.
NeighborWorks for New.
That's
Yeah,
the one
that's-
for Woodruff property
Yeah,
Got it.
in Guilford.
yeah, they were, Yeah, and the agency you're speaking of is, it's been around for a while as well, so. Okay, let me go to the next one. So this is phase one. So phase one, homes are built using a lot of prefabrication and panelized construction. That helped to keep the numbers down. We had a ton of ledge on the site, so we decided to forego basements. I think basements are kind of expensive and not needed in a house that's basically heated and cooled by heat pumps. So to me, it was sort of a wasted space. We were able to use shallow frost protected ICF foundations, which are allowed by the residential code, and we made good use of them here. But they're super insulated. They sit on insulation. These guys are built on mostly ledge, so they're not moving around a lot. And then the panels themselves are SIP panels, so structural insulated panels. Walls and roof all come on a flatbed truck. They're offloaded when the trucks arrive, and then we just put them together. So a house typically could go from foundation to under roof in about 2 weeks, which was great. Especially, can't see it here, but we started working on this in the winter time, so it was, we wanted to get enclosed as quickly as possible. Go on. SIP wall panel assembly. You can see the houses are going up. The walls themselves are 8 inches thick, mostly foam, and the roof is 10.5 inches thick, and again, mostly foam. So the roof panels just get laid in after the walls are erected.
Did you consider going fully modular?
We did. The thing about modular is you're kind of roped into a specific format or size. The modular homes that we explored all had to be certain dimensions in order to pass over the highways.
Right.
Panelized home construction probably adds a little bit more to the cost than modular, but also affords much more flexibility in the design. Yeah.
Modular goes up quicker.
Like a day.
These lie flat on the truck.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they carry a lot more. Yeah.
That's true.
You can see the house on the left is pretty much, that's with the SIP panels in place. And really the only thing left to do on that house is to weather it in and got a structure that you can work in. We started the process thinking that the homes would be timber framed. I couldn't get that out of my head. So we did the second floor in timber frame, which was also built off site. So the beams and columns were all milled in Tennessee and brought to the site on a flatbed truck. It adds a lot to the house, but it also, I think, reduced our cost because you don't have that envelope of space. You don't have the drywall, the ceiling, the tongue and groove that you see in between the beams was basically, it was the ceiling and the floor. And so we could then go over that with any material we wanted. So it was a good system. And it's the first thing people notice when they come in the house, right? I mean, it's like, it's an eye catcher.
Yeah, it adds character to the house,
Yeah.
for sure.
So this is progress interior kitchens. Cabinetry was, off the shelf plywood box cabinetry, and nothing elaborate, but not, bottom of the line. It was sort of Chevrolet in a world of automobiles. And the rest were, you could see the timber frame went up fairly quickly, and yeah, so this is kind of what it started to look like before our first people moved in. And this is what it looked like after they moved in. We were like blessed to have our first buyer be an art teacher. So she was an artist right out of the gate, and just so anybody we want to show a house to, we just take them to Ruth's house and show them what
It looks
could
very
be.
nice. It looks really nice. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
She
yeah,
really
she's amazing, so. And the other thing too is that we really did not want to spare too much in the materials. So for example, we could have used, Formica countertops, which would have saved us some money. We got a deal on the quartz from Viking Kitchens. They had some slabs left over and they said, you can use our slabs. So a lot of it comes down to just. So, phase one, I think we have so there's another interior shot and the exterior of that home. There are 3 model types. This is type 3, and this is a home with a ground floor bedroom and bathroom and laundry. So you could theoretically live on one floor, have the second floor for guests or children or whatever. In phase 2, it ended up, we had 3 families that were empty nesters and looking to stay in Guilford. And we built 2 more of these models and these worked out really well as far as having living all on one floor.
Did that reduce the bedroom count upstairs then?
No, we still have this. So this
Oh, you
one's
left
3
them as
bedrooms,
3
2
bedrooms.
bedrooms upstairs and
What's the square foot?
this is about 1,700, so a little bit more. And because we built up under the eaves, we didn't like go all the way up and then do a truss roof. So the roofs are basically gable ceilings on the inside. Phase 2, and there it is. We had an agreement with the inland wetland people that we would cross this ridiculously small stream with a bridge, which in hindsight was
Open,
probably
yeah,
not the
a
wisest
span.
idea, but it ended up costing a lot of money, but eventually and it is beautiful. It's a nice bridge. But the stream, literally, I mean, in the summertime, the stream dries up. It's not a stream. It's like
The bridge to nowhere.
a mud pit. Anyhow, so this was our bridge construction, and then there are a couple of units in the back underway. More shots of the houses in construction. There was some savings through economy of scale that we were able to realize in terms of getting our pricing. So we got pricing from various subcontractors to do it, and because they were doing 7 homes, it was a lot easier for them to price it down a little bit. As it was for the material suppliers and such.
Meaning at the same time, so having those
Yeah,
all ready for
Yeah.
them to come out.
yeah. So our goal was to kind of have all the houses delivered, but that requires a lot of space. So we ended up having them brought in like 3 or 4 deliveries at different times, and we were able to negotiate some pretty decent pricing on the homes. So this is the finish, the landscape, and the rears of the houses. So all of the houses have a front porch and a rear deck. The front porch is more sort of a public space. They all face that sort of general open area in the front. Ultimately, there's a pond on the property that we restored somewhat and and we wanted the houses to sort of circle the pond so that it was a site feature that was part of the landscape. And there's the bridge. Oh my gosh. The best $200 I ever spent was having a drone guy come and shoot some footage.
So that's the Guilford Arts Barn behind it
Oh, yeah.
on Durham Road.
And you'll see up here in the corner, see that bird? We have a lot of birds there.
Chris, could I ask you, the houses don't look like they have garages, they do not.
They do not,
So
no.
where are people parking?
There's parking along the drive. Can you go back to that? Because you could sort of see it. I don't know, maybe not. There you go.
They're here.
So, yeah, parking sort of in here and all around that sort of aligns with each of the houses.
So the paved is the ADA accessible space.
We put an electric charging station in too, because one of the people moving in, and that little gadget there is our screen pavilion. Sort of for everybody to use. I should say that that was built using site harvested timber, which was fun.
What was the rate? Oh, go ahead.
Can I just ask you, do you have water there? Like, what's the water septic situation? 'Cause that's
Wells.
a huge problem for us.
Wells, so
Each place has their own.
each house has its own well and its own septic system.
Okay.
And that was a limiting factor in the going from, we were gonna do 8 units back in the back there. We ended up cutting it back to 7 because the number of people living on this particular property triggered the state water department to classify this as public water. And that meant testing like just ad nauseum. It was crazy expensive and it would have added a lot to the HOA fees. So we decided to take one of the units out and build it someplace else. Just do 7 up there. So
Did you explore doing a common septic system?
we did. It got so complicated. We were gonna have two separate, no, I'm sorry, we explored
Community well.
shared wells, which was really complicated. It got, we had to have a huge retention, chamber for the wells, and it was almost easier to just drill 8 wells, because while the guy was there, it was just drilling. We got a lot of really good yield on the wells, which was a pleasant surprise. So plenty of water on that site.
But the septics were easier to do individuals for each unit rather
think
than
so,
that would be, a larger state
Yeah.
regulated system if you went and had them all shared.
And, since these are owned separately, everybody kind of, although our HOA fees include 5-year pump outs of the septic tanks, so, because we wanted to make sure that got done. But the septic ultimately is the homeowner's responsibility, as is the well.
The maintenance of those is not a common,
No,
that's interesting.
yeah. And you could see we had some fun at the end. That's Ruth, the woman in the middle who was the first home buyer.
In the pink?
Yep.
And that's
the
Matt,
artist.
what is he falling over?
That's the commissioner next to her, so.
Here, yes. Oh, it's the ribbon that they cut,
Yes.
that he's falling and picking up. I thought for a couple points that I thought were important for you to share, Chris. Well, one, there was a fire safety concern from the fire department as far as a hydrant location and whether or not the pond could be used as a dry hydrant, if it could draw enough yield. So the fire marshal's office was involved quite a bit. So if you can talk about that point, and then, the statutes talk about the 40-year deed restriction. So I just wanted you to highlight why you chose the 30-year versus the 40 also.
Yeah, so we had this, while we were developing this portable housing tax abatement program, that came up because I think 30G requires there to be a 40-year term. Well, our argument was that, and that's fine for a rental project. It's not as fine for a homeownership project. And I think we made that argument successfully so that the town was able to take the 30-year term and apply it to the.
And get credit for it?
Yes.
And link it more towards the length of a typical mortgage.
Exactly.
Versus an
Yeah.
additional
So
10 years. That's different, than.
Yeah, I mean, rental, is forever, and so 40 years is really nothing. But our term on the affordability was 30 years, and so the idea that you'd have a 30-year mortgage, which I think everybody there is going to have,
And also, I think because this was voluntary, this wasn't an application that came in under an 830G. So if someone is proposing voluntarily to, you know, deed restrict certain properties, like we have some developments where it's a market rate development, but the developer comes forward and says, well, you know what, because we're putting in this many units, we're just going to deed restrict for 20 years
Sure, I mean, you can.
this number so that it offsets the
Right,
climb of market
I
rate
was just
units.
curious as to how it qualified under 830G. I note that the funding program from DOH only required 20 years.
That's correct.
So I wonder if that.
Well,
was
it
a
will
factor.
only for 30 years. After the third, if it doesn't re-up, then they'll fall off the 830G. You know, those who are the capital A affordable in the state's eyes. Just like any of ours that are 40 years, once we exhaust that 40 years,
Right.
they can be
No,
sold
that
at
I
market
understood.
rate
I
and
just
we
didn't
lose
know
them.
whether an initial, if it were deed restricted for a year, would you get a year's worth of credit?
Yes,
Really?
my understanding is yes, as long as they're deed restricted, it checks the box for that. It's similar like the Chaffa loans. When you have those, you only have, that's sort of the variable capital A affordable. Once somebody, you know, refinance or, you know, or gets rid of that Chaffa loan, then that unit no longer counts. But that, your funding source too, Chris, is different than any other source that we've talked about with other, is it the PATH?
It's called the PATH program.
Yeah, can you, is that what this is?
No, this is actually, I brought this for you guys to look at. This is a new program that's being rolled out by DOH. And it's specifically targeting homeownership projects. So you can see the terms are, you know, pretty close to what we did, what we got. And their ultimate source for funding, DOH's ultimate source was the Housing Trust Fund, the state's Housing Trust Fund. As opposed to HUD or other federal agencies that would come with a lot more strings, a lot more restrictions. So this is a little bit kinder. If you guys decide that you want to do something similar to this in Madison, this would be the program I would recommend because it's just come out this year and the end of the kind of pre-application period ends May 8th, but then they're picking up another one in the fall. So.
You know what percentage of your total cost they covered?
Well, in our case, they covered about 40%. And some of that came down to, you know, expensive things that we encountered during, like the bridge and, you know.
Right.
Well, I'll get into the fire protection in a second. Anyhow, the amount varied, and it really came down to what can a family of, say, 3 or 4 at 80% of the area median income afford. And even weighing in the tax abatement program, you know, what are the utility expenses, what are the mortgage, principal and interest, and what are their taxes? Those are the big ones. The subsidy that was provided helped us get to that point. We sort of backed into it based upon 30% of a household income.
And what about the gap funding you got from the Wallingford group? How significant was that?
That was, they were all loans. So they were helpful in the beginning because they offered us a pre-development loan, which got the project kind of off the ground. We were able to get through zoning and in the wetlands.
And then normal construction loans.
They did acquisition, construction, and this pre-development loan, which was really helpful.
But the additional financing came, your organization then took out a loan for the construction. Besides
Yeah.
the pre-development and the.
Yeah, well, that all came through Capital for Change, who were the administrators of the PATH program. So we actually approached them right out of the gate when this property became available, and they said, you know, so happens that we're working with DOH on this PATH program. Guilford is one of the target towns, and we'd like to see if you could develop some housing.
Very fortunate.
I mean, it was perfect. The timing couldn't have been better. So
Is that program still available?
they liked the project enough that they want to recapitalize it, and I'm trying to convince them to recapitalize it larger rather than smaller. So Guilford wants to do more of these. They're offering land on Sawmill Road
Yeah.
to do some more cottages just like these. And DOH has said, we will recapitalize this TAP program for you to use for those new homes. And
Is it a certain number of homes that they'll fund? Like, you had 10
Yeah.
initially?
to be determined. So it's funny because I was just putting together an email today saying, I'd like to do, 15 more if we could. So.
And do they care where they are? Like, you could split that in multiple municipalities?
Yeah. Now the PATH program is a little bit weird in that it only targeted 4 communities. So Guilford, Branford, Milford, and Hamden.
So Madison wouldn't be.
Well, I mean, so the question to me for them is I don't see any difference really between providing funds for Guilford and providing funds for
So
Madison.
why would they target just certain communities like that? I
Honestly-
mean, Milford is like meeting their 10%.
Yeah, I
of
honestly, I don't
affordable. I
know.
don't understand that.
Yeah.
I never heard of that program until you brought it up. That's why I thought-
We were the only agency to use it, and it was, that was it. I mean, you're looking at the total of the units. We have 1 unit left to do under that program, so. Under phase 1 of that, or the first part.
The first
Mhm.
issuance of.
But I don't see any reason why, and one of the things I did, and I think maybe this was after I met with you, to go back to the state and say, hey, can we do this in Madison? Would that be acceptable? And I can't see any reason why not. Although this program is on an equal par with the PATH program. So this seems to have a fairly,
We're East Guilford anyway.
We can change the name, right? We can move it.
That wasn't me.
Yeah, we can change it.
What's the sweet spot in terms of number of units and size of the property for you?
not necessarily. I think, given our experience with the cottage community and the condominium aspect, there were lots of additional expenses that went with a cluster community like that. I'm still loving the idea of a cottage community, but it doesn't help with the affordability because you have all these built-in costs like sidewalks and site lighting and just a lot of additional costs. And in our case, there was the bridge. So.
So what would
Avoid
you-
wetlands.
What would you do in lieu for affordable home ownership?
Well, Sawmill Road, for example, the concept right now is to take the land that's the town is, offering us and subdivide it into lots that are code compliant. If we get once we get subdivision approval, then we're building homes as of right. So there isn't a lot of,
What does the zoning require for lot size?
acre and a half. For
So
interior
what can you
lots.
get, 3 lots?
Well, on Sawmill Road,
Yeah.
6.
Oh, you can, it's that big.
And it was suggested that we do them in clusters of 3 so that each 3-unit cluster could share a driveway.
Yeah.
Save some costs.
I'm sorry, you can get how many homes on a lot?
6.
Well, there'll be
Well,
6.
6 individual
total.
lots.
There would be 6 individual lots.
Each of an acre plus.
Depending on whether they're interior.
And 1 home per lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But 3 lots can be serviced off of 1 driveway. That's a zoning regulation in Guilford.
And what is the rationale for the larger lots, I mean, when they're talking about that? Is it sanitation? Is it, what is the,
Well,
or just history?
No, we experienced both development models on our first project, on the Great Hill Cottage community. And quite honestly, it was a lot easier to develop a house on its own lot than it was to do a condominium. Now, the other thing that we sort of had talked about is the idea of doing a condominium, but with houses having their own lots and a shared like driveway, sidewalks, things like that, which I think does simplify it. And we were very close to that in providing everybody with their own well and septic system and electricity. So that was a thought too.
Have you considered running, duplex or four-unit buildings, that kind of thing?
Yeah, provided that each So one of the things that we're talking about also is the idea of an ADU. So developing a house with an ADU, which gives the town two, if the ADU is deed restricted, we get two affordable housing units out of one.
So you can double and have 12 units
Correct.
on 6
Yeah.
lots.
Now, the only thing that needs to be worked out with that is how do we manage the owners of the houses who are not savvy real estate people? How do they handle having a rental? And I think, you know, they would not, and I think this program specifies that they won't do more than two units on
On a lot.
yeah. So we couldn't.
Well,
do
they
that.
would have to partner with an administrator. The HOA would have to, you
Yes.
know, and do it that way. You can,
Yeah,
but that's a nice, and it gives different sizes.
yeah,
Wouldn't a duplex though also help your cost issue?
yeah,
Oh, sure. It's all the-
yeah, you have to share.
In this particular case, the reason it was avoided was because they're looking for as of right permitting. And duplexes are not permitted as of right on Sawmill, correct? It's only downtown.
Probably, yeah.
I
single
think
family
it's
house.
only 1 and 2 zone, yeah, downtown.
And now, but now ADUs are allowed
Yes,
by right.
up to 1,200 square feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the Guilford adopted the state's
And
regulations.
what is our situation in Madison as far as duplex or quadruplex?
We don't allow 2 families.
At all?
Do not at all,
No.
no.
But you do allow ADUs.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But right now, only up to 800 square
I
feet.
think we have a nifty design for a 600 square foot. that I think would be great.
Wouldn't a friendly 830G application though get you a duplex?
Well, see, that's the key. How do people look at 830G applications? Often
You're asking a question that doesn't have.
with
an answer.
opposition.
We don't, yeah, and we didn't pursue that in Guilford only because we weren't going to get a lot of neighborhood opposition. Honestly, at the zoning hearing, we didn't get one person.
No,
Okay.
there was site development, people who abutted the pond as far as early questions, but I remember that too. It was very low
Yeah.
for the special permit.
Jen, do you have anything to say back there? You're listening to this?
No, I'm listening. I'm taking it all in.
Okay, you know what we have to do now, right?
I know.
All right.
Jen is one of our Board of
Okay.
Selectmen members.
You don't need Anthony or Francine, any further questions?
So with regard to the fire situation, we had the fire marshal show up in the middle of summer and probably the worst drought we've had in a while. And the pond was like dry. He said, there's no way I'm gonna let you do a dry hydrant here. So we petitioned the town to use ARPA money to allow us to put a 30,000 gallon tank buried in the ground. Very expensive, very disruptive, and very difficult. And so one of the Board of Selectmen at that meeting stood up and said, well, why are we putting a tank? Why don't we just extend the water line up State Street?
Because it was at the assisted living facility. So it
Yes.
was what, 200 feet?
Like 500 feet, but
500.
still, and put a hydrant at the end. And then we're covered, then we're within 1,000 feet for the fire department.
And there was no support for that?
Oh, there was, yeah, no, it was definitely, and I thought, why did we think of that? What a great idea. So it ends
Well,
up.
ARPA money wasn't available in the beginning
Well, that's true.
when you were designing the project.
That's true.
That sort of, you came into that.
So, and it ended up the ARPA money providing the new fire hydrant serves a lot more homes, but it also costs us less than burying a 30,000 gallon tank.
That's great.
So it was a brilliant
And in
idea.
theory, they could run water back to these units
They could.
if they ever wanted to.
Yeah.
Because they could be serviced by public water.
So with that,
That's it, yeah.
that's my story.
That's fantastic.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Are you interested in moving across the border, and looking at properties around here too?
Well, I talked with Eric about doing a project here, and so, yeah, if you're looking for a developer, we'd be really interested.
I wonder if you'd be interested in a building that needs preservation in the center of town that had.
We talked about
Yeah.
this, a restoration of, or a conversion of an existing, and I don't know, it's your funding source is new construction, correct?
I
Or
think
is it-
Might be, but looking at this, they do it on a case-by-case basis. So they might consider a,
It'd only be
Right.
like 2 or 3. Oh, but that could, well, depending on,
you know, and then the other thing to consider is a mixed, so
Yeah.
market and the market units would help offset the cost to do the other units too, so.
Well, I'll follow up with you. There's a property, the property we're talking about is owned by the library, and they don't know what to do with it.
Oh,
And they've been letting it deteriorate since 2014.
is that off the, that's right off the green, right? Or is,
I know it's right
it's
behind the
right on the
library,
library property. It's the White House
Oh,
on the
okay.
road.
but it's a walkable to the center of town, to the supermarkets, to the train, to the buses, everything. It's a great location. And one of the things they're actually considering is just knock it down and build a garden, because they have no other choice. It costs them a lot of money to renovate it.
yeah,
They have an idea.
that's certainly a historic district, right?
It's a downtown village district.
Yeah.
The building was, yes, but
It's no
has no
longer.
historic value now, according to SHPO.
They made a deal, the library had to make a deal. They ran into trouble with their building, their extension,
Yeah,
and they needed to knock down a building, it was called the Hull Building that was there right behind the library.
yeah.
And the state gave them permission to do that finally. But then in favor, and because they did that, they just said, well, all the other buildings are no longer part of your historic district. So they no longer are part of the historic district in that sense.
Yeah.
The building is a mixed use, well, historically was a mixed use. It was a commercial first floor and 2 residential units above.
Yeah,
And so the thought is, well, I guess a couple of things. One, the zoning regulations encourage still some type of commercial use on the first floor. But it would be creating those units as affordable.
mhm,
And I guess possibly if we needed to do the 3rd unit as affordable, or if a developer needed to have some kind of generate an income, perhaps have a rental, commercial use on the first floor to offset the affordables on the second.
that's a good concept.
They could be rentals, but there has to be some type of long-term lease with the library somehow. It shares
A ground-
septic
a ground
with
lease.
an adjacent building.
Yeah, ground
There's,
lease. Yeah, there needs to be a ground lease, and I've
yep,
talked to them about that. But I'm gonna follow up with you, Chris, because
Yeah,
this is a project that I'm also with the Historical Society, and we would like to see this building preserved for our own purposes.
right.
And then turning it into something like this could provide the income to maintain it on a perpetual basis.
is this is ownership though, so then you would have to you would bring in 2 or potentially 3 other owners if you're
Yeah, I'm not
condominiumizing the
sure.
units in the
We're gonna have to-
building.
when we get
This
further
funding
down-
source at
When we get
least.
further down, we'll have to see. I mean, the idea that we have, and we proposed to the library, is that we would take possession, ownership of the building. And then there would be a ground lease that the library would then continue to control that piece of land, but not the house, not the building itself.
So it's like a land lease.
It would
Right,
be land lease,
yeah,
land lease,
9-year lease or whatever it is.
And I think that's allowed. I think that's allowed under this program. But there are other programs out there.
Yeah.
This isn't the only one, the only game in town. So there might be other options.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I would like to just have a
Well,
chance to follow up with you. on that.
Yeah, it was a little daunting, I guess, hearing from other larger scale developers or even the nonprofit who's doing, Hope Partnership who's doing the Wellington, and the amount of time it takes to get tax credits and all of this. Like, when you have a source like this that seemed to be a lot easier to access that funding, maybe that's a better route for,
There's a certain benefit, there's a large benefit in selling condominiums as opposed to rentals. And I think Hope just does rentals
yes,
generally, right?
yes.
And you're right, tax credits take forever, they're expensive, they're cumbersome. So the idea of selling condominiums or selling units in some way brings in private money in the form of mortgages. And there are other programs out there that I think might be,
Well,
but that's,
Well,
I mean,
we'll
right
follow-
downtown, it's like, that's hard to beat, really.
yeah, there's a lot of reasons why we should do it, but.
Yeah.
It would be great.
There's also a
So
lot
this
of
would
reasons.
also be eligible for the governor's transit-oriented money.
Exactly, yeah,
So
So
it's good.
there are a lot of options here, I
Yeah.
think,
yeah.
potentially.
And we have a local resident who is considering a six-figure contribution to this to get the thing started. So.
Given my,
Upfront
given my
money.
number.
Yeah. After I get the six figures, I'll be happy, Chris.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
very much.
This was great. Thanks for your time,
Yeah, let me
Chris.
know.
Yeah, I'll be in touch with you.
Let's talk a bit about the letter we got from the one resident and asking for getting on the list for affordable housing. I think the suggestion has been made that what we should do is immediately add to our frequently asked questions, or perhaps even as a separate unit, and list the names of those people in town or organizations in town that do take applications, so that anybody who wants to, they can look at the town site. And then the question is, should we answer her directly? Because I think there's a reason she, right now, and I assume she thinks that the thing went into a dark hole and will never come out, which is exactly what has happened, actually. So can we respond to it? Is there some, without giving our names out and, and all of a sudden Francine's got a pen pal?
I'm wondering if this might fall under portfolio of either of you two. You get inquiries all the time, don't you?
We had talked about that,
Yeah.
when we were debating whether we should be responding also. So we were waiting for this meeting to discuss and figure out what the
When it was
appropriate.
floated that we would put this on the website,
Mhm.
a place for people to submit questions, I asked, and somebody has to be responsible for answering people. And so we didn't actually decide that before we.
We did that. That's why I'm bringing it
Yeah,
back.
so,
So, I mean, we can, well, if we hit reply all, then they have everybody's email addresses. Is that what you're saying?
If
You don't
we-
want everyone
No,
to
no, no,
know.
no. I mean,
No, we can respond.
if Francine and I are the ones that get and I think just the two of us.
is
right?
it only the two of us
Jane
that got
or-
the question? No, just you and I. It's
Just
you,
you and
me.
I.
Yeah, I got it.
The
No,
only-
I got
Well,
it.
we get it.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
staff
You
and
get
then
it.
you
It's the
too.
5 people whose addresses are on there.
Mhm.
It's us,
Mhm.
those three
Right.
and you and me.
So-
Right, and I mean, I would have said, we are not taking applications, we are not the site that's taking applications.
Right.
So
but
I
think-
then instruct people to go to the Hope Partnership and get
Or
on the
to
email
Or anybody
list.
else in town that is renting affordable housing. Is there anybody else around?
No,
That's it.
Well, Wildwood for Concord Meadows.
Oh,
So
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I,
I think that would be the two
Okay.
sources that we would refer them to.
So the bottom line is, there's not a town place where people apply. It's just in Madison, there's 2 different organizations that they apply, so
Right
that
now.
the answer to.
Mhm.
Right now.
For
where they
rentals.
can get information. We don't take any applications,
Okay.
No, you can't.
right? I don't take
For-
any.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
I'll fill applications out for my clients and help them apply, but we're not the screener, we don't send them off to.
Right, we don't maintain a
Then maybe
waiting
what would be
list.
helpful, since both of you know, maybe you could just privately email me and Mark what those people are, and then I guess we have to answer.
Well, I think we should publish it. I mean, the Concord Meadows is taking in people on a regular basis when
Yes.
other people die. And the Wellington is a
Yeah,
rental, and so it'll be turning over presumably.
Okay,
So
so
I think
what is
this-
what's the title of it? What would it be called? What's the title?
So what I usually say to folks, is there's one subsidized senior and disabled housing in town. It's called Concord Meadows. It's operated by Wildwood Property Management. And then I usually give them Wildwood's number. And then I'll say currently in development is the Wellington, which is being developed by Hope Partnerships and will be managed by DeMarco, management.
It accidentally rolled
Yeah.
over your phone. Then I went to get it, but then I scraped my knee.
Okay.
Hello.
Couldn't we just have a section on our webpage?
I think we
That's what I was-
should.
yeah.
If you're looking for affordable
Yes,
housing,
that's. but,
exactly what Heather said.
Yeah, I'll just need that in writing.
Yeah, I'll
That's what I
type,
meant. Could you
I'll
just
type it up and
email-
email it to you. I
Yeah,
mean,
that'd be great.
I think the other thing that probably would be good at some point would maybe be to list the properties that are not for sale, not actively for sale, but the ones that are,
the affordable units.
deed restricted as affordable, so folks know
Yes,
We talked
yes,
about
I
The
think
other,
it should, yeah.
Since you folks are copied on everything, can we then assume that if you think there might be a reason to reach out because they are people you know or sound like prospective clients, that you would just do it on your own? You don't, it doesn't, we're not in
I
the
think-
social services business.
Yeah, I
right?
think probably the best course of action would be whoever responds, if you respond and then copy the affordable email, you'll receive a copy of what our response is so that you know we've responded.
Right,
Yeah, I
it's
just
just,
think
you
as
just
a matter-
reply all.
So
As a
it
matter
does,
of
if you
policy, we
reply
should
all.
answer, we should directly answer each inquiry, even though.
I think you should.
Yeah, I do too.
If somebody contacts the affordable email asking a specific question of how to get in touch with something, I think it should be a direct
Yeah, that's fine,
response.
and we should put it on our website so that we can also direct them there.
And direct them to the. So,
But other than, if it isn't directly related to affordable housing, I assume we would still want to refer someone. We'd say,
I think anybody who's a citizen should get a response.
Right,
Should
but-
not be a-
Sure.
you know,
right, and we
Right,
should,
and I mean, we don't know whether that person actually lives in Madison
We
or
don't,
not.
we don't.
They could have been looking up and
True.
down the whole shoreline. We
And-
get a lot of that,
and-
actually.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure that's
An awful
right.
lot of people who are, you know,
But that's
up and down
okay.
the shoreline looking for everything.
I don't think we need to, qualify them. I think
Right.
if anybody just, give an
Because they
answer.
can apply at the time, anybody up and down the shoreline would be.
And then
able
they
to
become a
apply.
Madison resident.
and do we know if any neighboring communities have more places that are taking applications?
So when folks reach out, I have a list of the housing authorities that is basically from New Haven up to Middletown, out to Essex, that I hand out, and I encourage folks to apply widely.
What if we were to put that on our website as well?
Yeah,
It's a resource,
Sure.
resource for
Yep.
people looking for affordable housing.
Yeah, and I use the same list. I actually had somebody who's, she's not well, she needs to be near Yale New Haven Hospital, but her daughter lives in Fairfield. And I'm like, oh, Fairfield, well, maybe you should call down there. She was open to Fairfield. I was able to come up with a list of a bunch of different places, which I guess you have to call individually. And so, everybody's situation is different. That's unusual. Most people want to stay.
yeah, no, I understand. So as a matter of policy, we will answer every question, and Heather or Molly will do so, depending on where it seems most appropriate.
Right. So you want
Or
one of
we'll reach
us
out.
to answer that one?
As long as, I don't, what I don't think we want is we don't want our personal names going out there as a response, because then we get into a dialogue with somebody, and I don't think we want that.
Well, my email that I did for this has no identified factors.
Then you can answer if you want.
No,
I'm
I just-
saying, no.
I don't know, I'm just saying that. But I guess we probably have to have some organization about how we're gonna answer, because don't we have,
Well, no, they will receive anything.
Could we do like a
and we
formal
will
response
receive
from
it.
somebody emails?
We
like
can
that?
decide.
Yeah, if we CC
They will
the
respond,
Affordable Housing
acknowledge.
Committee,
okay.
so whatever that said,
From the affordable.
I don't know, anytime we've gotten emails in the past, it was whoever got it first or, just replied and replied all, so that at least the other people who were on it knew that someone took care of it. That's typically how we've been responding to them. When they when we were receiving the affordable emails, it was Heather, myself, and Austin who would get them. And,
We typically would let whoever the most appropriate person to respond.
yeah, if it
And it's
had like,
usually-
senior aid, things like that, I would let. But if it was about calculations or
Right.
I don't
other
think
stuff,
the
we
volun-
just kind of took it and made sure somebody got back to somebody within 48
Well,
hours.
That's what we want, but I
Yeah.
think it should not be the volunteers on the committee that's responding. I think it should be the town responding.
Well, I guess the question was, well, that's why Francine set up a nondescript, when we set this up, she set up a general email address so that she
And
could
we can-
respond.
And what we need is just an acknowledgement that it's been received. And that we will, we understand, or, this woman, we only have the one, but she asked for this one piece of information. We should go back to her and say, this piece of information is available. Here are the things now. anybody can do that, but you have the addresses, Heather, and you know who they are. So I think just answer this woman and let's get that done right now.
Okay.
So
Uh,
can we put like an automatic reply?
That's
on
what
it?
I was thinking.
I'll ask Rita.
You know, that says your
I'm sure
email
Rita-
is
I'm sure you can have
important,
an automatic reply,
and then,
and that's
you
fine.
know,
Yeah, I kind of understood this, that when you got inquiries, like I get if, you know, we can have an automatic response, but that you and Francine would bring them to the committee if.
If there's something to
discuss.
bring to the committee, yeah.
It's a 2-week delay, so I don't think we should do that. If it's routine stuff, I'm happy to, let the two of them figure out how to answer it. There's no reason someone should
Mark
wait
is
2
saying that he
weeks.
doesn't think we
Let's,
should answer.
let's.
But now, but you don't
let's
want to respond to people.
Let's separate the two things. One is ask Rita if you can do an automatic reply saying, we've received this message from you and we will, get back to you as soon as we possibly can. That's fine. If that's done automatically, that's great. I think we should then secondly, take the information that Heather has about the people that are open right now, whether it's Wellington or anyone else, and also anything that might turn over that are actually for sale. And we should put that on the website. So we need that information and let's get that to Rita so we can put that on the website. And then how we respond. This is a simple question. Where do I, get on the line for affordable housing? That doesn't require the committee to take any real action. But some more questions may come along and those we will want to discuss. And Francine is in charge of that and we will discuss it with the committees, decide how to respond. And then since you have the mystery email address.
What does our URL say? Who are we in our email? Is it would it be affordable housing committee?
How this works.
It's you can't tell you correctly.
There's
I mean,
like
if
specific questions.
Francine answers no, it does not have.
Why wouldn't we put our name on?
Why would we?
Why wouldn't we not, when we send out email, have it go from Madison Affordable Housing Committee?
It could, but there's an email address that we
Yes.
need. We don't have an email address for Madison Affordable Housing.
We can put our name on any email address that we have.
What-
I know.
I think
100%.
maybe we'll be looking to things.
Was
When
there
this
was a
session
second one, 'cause
started,
you responded to her.
and it was Mark and me and Aaron. And there was a decision to, Mark said, well, let's not have anything identifying. And so I did make up an email. I just put for myself AHCMTE and that's
that's you.
me.
Oh,
That to me, that was my own way of saying to myself, that's my affordable housing committee.com.
okay.
And so that's me. But then Mark has his email and you
Yep.
three have your email.
Right.
So when the person asks a question, those are the 5 people that are getting it. So we all got this question.
Understood.
And then I
Understood.
said to Mark,
So,
originally I thought our discussion was that it was Mark and I that were going to be answering these. And then, but then and so I wrote to Mark and said, had we decided? But Mark wasn't sure that we should answer personally, or should it be
Right.
the town answering? And that's where we are right this minute.
So I'm making a suggestion.
No, let me just say on that, it also is, what is the question? I mean, if it's just a question of, please tell me the name, where is the town hall? We can answer that question
Right.
without any problem. But if there's a question about what we're trying to do as a committee or, issues that require a little bit more complicated answer, I think the committee has to think about how we want to respond, as well as the help from Aaron and Heather.
So let me just make a suggestion on the purely technical side, that an email response from us to an email that we receive should go out in the name of the Madison Affordable Housing Committee, whatever the URL ultimately is. We can
It doesn't do that.
Huh?
It doesn't do that.
It can do that.
That's not how the website system is. If the email comes in, if I reply to it, it will come from my email address,
Right.
my work
We'd
email. It will
like to
come
have-
from whoever's email
We'd like to
address.
create a make-believe person called Madison Affordable Housing Committee that has the ability to respond to our email.
But then one person's good, so
All the CCs, all the protocols internally are different. It's just we'd like to have, when we send out a response, I think it ought to come in the name of the committee.
Well, it
as
could go
opposed
from
to
mine.
individual.
Mine does say, mine is AHCMTE, and that's me.
but this has gotten very complicated.
right.
We have been receiving these emails for years and responding to people. And so inviting, to have the committee,
But we're now
We
doing
Beyond
different
them.
work. We're not taking applications for
Yes.
affordable housing.
Let's.
We're
No,
trying to
all we're doing is
create-
answering the
It
question.
depends on the question. we don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna say what questions might be there, but a simple question can be answered with a simple response. So Francine can send under her mysterious email address, here is the list of people looking to, Heather can do it. I mean, any one of us can do that, that's fine. But what I'm more concerned about is if we get aggressive things, if we start getting, like there, for example, there was, we had this historical society, we put on the Facebook page, the town, the local Madison Facebook page, not the town Facebook page. We put on the photographs and the story about the Daniel Hand House. One of our first responses was, these clowns should not even be allowed to walk out the front door. They're stupid, and that's the kind of response you get. You're also going to get some that are serious questions that maybe you're asking about policy or such like that. And I think there has to be a sorting of what kind of response we have for each one. So I'm kind of comfortable with automatic reply from the town saying we received it, so somebody doesn't think it just went into a black hole or ignoring it. Then we can discuss at the next meeting how we want to respond to this and whether or not we should do. But I think your answer as far as using a Madison, our committee, Madison Housing, Affordable Housing Committee, that's a perfectly acceptable way of answering it if we have to.
If it's an issue that we are responding to,
yeah,
it should go out in our name.
I agree, and we can easily do that. We can even just put it on
the deeper we go into this, right, the more we engage the public, the more likely we are to get questions that are relevant to our work.
Right.
And I agree that anything that requires the input of the full committee should be shared, but that could be done electronically.
Oh, yeah.
Because automatically wait a minimum of 2 weeks and sometimes 3 weeks, depending on how it's.
Or 1 day, depending on.
Yeah, you're right. That's not a policy.
Okay, well, let's continue this conversation. We'll send out, so would you just send out the reply to this person
Yes, I
saying
will.
that here are the options you have? Then let's take that, and if you'll send that over to us and Francine, she will write it up and make sure it gets onto the website. We talked to Rita about that. So we have
Right,
done
and
that part.
If we had gotten this email and we knew that applications for the Wellington were open, I would certainly respond to this person ASAP.
Could I just make a suggestion?
Yes, Jen?
Yeah, just a quick suggestion. I mean, I do like the idea of an auto reply if that's at all possible. And the auto reply could even say something like, if you're inquiring about affordable housing applications, our committee does not process those, but we're happy to forward this email along to the appropriate department within town that could help address that issue. But I agree, waiting 2 weeks in between meetings, as Bennett was saying, to, address questions, it does not really lend like a good taste in the mouth of the person who is sending the email if they're not getting some sort of, response. And then it's, you could always read those questions into your meeting minutes at a subsequent meeting, just so that the general public as well has an idea of the kind of questions that are being asked by members of the public, if that question is pertinent for public, just for public knowledge.
Agreed, Jen. I mean, one of the things we're talking about is if we get things that are worth answering, it will also, whether we answer it or not directly, they will also be added to the FAQs on the website. So we can direct people to the website. So as we get legitimate questions, we can then provide much more information.
I love Jen's idea. I think the automatic reply could say, if your question involves filing an application, here's the link to our website. Otherwise, we'll be back in touch with you.
Yep.
Something like
And
that.
we may get a bunch of these questions.
It could very well, particularly
This
if
could
the
be-
Wellington starts making a lot more noise
Yep.
than it has made so far.
And the
People
next one,
realize.
and the next one, and the
Yeah.
next one, yeah.
I mean, we get frequent phone calls about this, so
About the Wellington? But just generally.
any sort of affordable housing.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Wellington
Housing
really
in
has kind of been in a corner of the town. No one's really, been paying attention to it, but soon they will.
Do you know how big the waiting list is now?
They don't have.
Yeah,
Application
it's not open
They're
yet.
not taking applications yet.
Not until, we're told the early fall.
Yeah.
once it's closer to
Yeah.
opening.
Okay, next
Yeah.
order of business is we have moved the public meeting from the 15th to the following week, the 21st, I think that is, isn't it?
22nd.
22nd. And so I think that I'm going to recommend that we then not have our regular meeting, that's the day of our next regular meeting. And unless there's some reason for
The
it.
15th is the day.
Well, we canceled that initially in anticipation of
Yeah,
the
15th.
public session, so I'd have to put that or uncancel that if you want to meet on the.
I'm sorry, you canceled what? Did you cancel?
The 15th.
The public meeting is canceled. You have not
You
canceled.
had a regular meeting
On the 15th.
scheduled for the 15th, that at your last meeting you canceled in preparation, that you were only going to have the public session at 6 o'clock that night.
Right.
So if
Actually, I
we,
didn't remember that, so I apologize, but. I
no,
didn't
that's
remember.
fine.
Yeah.
But I'd have to, if you want to meet at 4 o'clock on the 15th,
No.
I'd have to uncancel
I
that.
think we're going to say do not uncancel.
Do we want to meet?
So
on
the next
22nd?
meeting is,
I think we don't want to meet on the 22nd either. I think we should get here, maybe an hour before the meeting so we can actually sit down and, kind of, make sure that we're all together on the same page before we do the public meeting.
Is it not at the senior center?
There's a
and
senior
so
center.
then we just
Meeting, you kind of have
set
to
up
have
a
meeting,
working
right?
group of, because the meeting,
It would not be an official meeting of the committee. It would simply be
It's an
an
information
organizational meeting to prepare for the public meeting to come.
to be scheduled. We don't have a date for this.
We don't need
No,
to,
he's
do we?
saying-
To plan for a public information session, we have to,
Well, I just want to make sure that everybody on the committee is aware of what the topic for the
Community.
public community meeting would be, accessory apartments.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is that what we're talking
Well, that's
about?
what we're talking about.
That's-
we were.
So that was
instructed
talked
that
about
that's
at-
what we're doing, and we have a
When
agenda.
did that happen?
That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Yes, so let's take these things one at a time. 22nd, public meeting, 6 o'clock at the senior center. The subject matter is the ADUs.
Well, I think it would be helpful to have some idea for the rest of the committee, the format of the meeting, logistics of how we're gonna be
We're handing that
Doing
out
that.
right now.
meeting.
Eric apologizes that he's unable to be here. His work has been
Yeah.
taking him out of state. However, we did go over it and he put together this draft agenda. And he met with Aaron yesterday to go over the portion that deals with the existing regulations in Madison and how they differ from the state statute, which we opted out of. For those who aren't privy to this information, I came to the power mapping meeting a half hour late because I didn't have it in my calendar. And I was informed that the group had decided that we would dedicate the next community meeting to ADUs. And that- I'm sorry?
When was that? I didn't.
I don't know, a couple weeks ago.
With him.
Oh, I didn't. I couldn't go outside.
And,
You could make
and,
it.
and we were also, I was also instructed, Eric wasn't there, that it would include a small group session. And so we modified Eric's agenda to include that. This agenda is way long. And
It's,
it
you
needs
may want to know, yeah.
some pruning. But we understood that today would be a meeting where we would go over it and
No, that's really good.
get people's reaction, and we can make,
Well, since no one has seen this before, let's take a minute to. read
Sure,
through it and
yeah.
see.
and Eric apologized, he
Right.
had meant to be here.
My recommendation is that we call them accessory apartments, but they're consistent with our regulations, at least to be able
That's what
to
you're using the regs.
reflect. Right.
Accessory apartments?
So the use that's allowed in the zoning regulations is an accessory apartment.
Yeah, I don't know that ultimately we want to use the regulatory term if we're changing the environment, but,
I think we have to at least make reference to that because.
oh, we
that is what
absolutely
have
do.
to
We have a whole section on what the reg is. So
Yeah.
we shouldn't hide or distort what the regulatory terms are, but for marketing purposes and for consistency to overall plan, I don't know that we're ready to commit to that right now, but we can certainly add it.
And Aaron, the ADUs or the, whatever you just said, they are either attached or not attached to this.
Correct.
Okay.
Who, Bennett, who is preparing slides?
Say again,
These are shown as slides. Who is responsible for preparing?
Eric. So Eric is the lead on this task for our work group, and he's been working on it for many months now. And he will make time to prepare the slides once we have the content. But if you're offering to help, I can let him know.
Well, I will have to have some prepared for my section. I have some from previous
Yeah, she's on slide 4.
presentations. Yeah, but I think we should continue to communicate on this. I just want to I kind of want to see the direction as far as, you know, introducing accessory apartments, telling them, you know, what they are and some of that history, what our regulations are. And I guess that's my question of how you move forward on that in public engagement and what you're proposing.
Have you been able to read the whole thing so far?
Yes, I'm looking at it, but my concern is whether or not we want to have planning and zoning commission people there. Like, are you brainstorming for changes?
Yeah, I think this is a preliminary. We certainly want to engage planning and zoning. This is an introductory. When we submitted an earlier draft to the committee, we talked about having, as we got deeper into this, having multiple community feedback sessions. This is not yet that. This is a high-level introduction to the topic, designed to get maximum engagement from the community to the extent that they have had experience or have things they'd like to do, and so forth. So I request that we take a little more time to go through it and see if there are things that people want to change. Yeah.
I think my first impression is this is too much to even consider doing in an evening meeting that will run for an hour.
Yeah, we thought it was going to go an hour and a half. I don't know if there's anything sacrosanct about the other one, an hour and a half.
I thought we had an hour.
I'm not arguing that. I mean, an hour and a half, it's still too much. It is, I mean, it's much too much. I mean, we start getting into breakout sessions and stuff like that. It's overcoming the challenges. I think, is this, I mean, this, when Eric thinks about this, does he think of this as this next meeting as a way to bring up the issue or to try to solve the issue?
Oh, no. It's getting public feedback on all the dimensions of the issue. And it's starting by, you know, educating people about it, kind of level setting everybody, but engaging people early on at every section.
I think that's necessary as we go forward. Yeah.
So if there are things that people think should be eliminated, let's talk about those.
I think my concern is that there are no meetings before this meeting. And my thought from our last meeting was that we would benefit from a little more structure and organization amongst the committee in your in your next meeting. Who's gonna introduce what's, the format and kind of coordinate who's able to attend on the 22nd and how that's
Well, here we are.
Gonna
I mean,
work.
This is our meeting and we are talking about it. So
Can I
let's,
just ask a question?
What, Francine?
I feel like a lot of meetings are happening that I'm not aware of. So last.
No, you were invited to the meeting, but
Okay,
you were not
okay.
able to attend.
I'm
The one Ben finished.
just finish for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. The last time we had a meeting and and it was decided we were going to have the community meeting on May 15th. It was a community meeting. And so then, yes, then there ended up being this meeting with Ben, I think the next morning. Was it Ben's suggestion that I just assumed when we were, and apparently incorrectly, that when we were creating another community meeting, it's really on the second community meeting we're having. The Zoom meeting, we should also talk about that for a second before we leave, I think. So I just assumed it was another one of the same kind. A second time having a community meeting, presenting the same kind of information we did at the first one with hopefully different people. So then there was a meeting with Ben Fink. And at that meeting, how did it come? Was it Ben's suggestion that we now talk about ADUs at our community meeting? Was that what his?
Well, I think it kind of evolved. Part of the power mapping meeting, which is a working group and always has been a working group that has grown from Ben and I working together and inviting folks. And that's where members of the committee have joined in. It's not a separate committee meeting, but it's all based on this community involvement. So part of that discussion at that meeting was reflecting on your last, what worked on that public meeting, which is the Zoom one, which I can't recall at the last committee meet if anybody talked about
We
that.
did, and we said there were 4 people who showed up, 2 participated, and that was not a successful, even though we got some interesting people, but both people that did participate were activists and were very much involved, and we weren't really reaching out to the community with that.
Right, so I just couldn't remember if that was, if I was thinking of a recap with Ben or if that was here
No,
in
that
your
was here in the
committee.
meeting, yeah.
But what that led to was the suggestion, and I think it might have been you, Heather, or Jen, in the future, what if these group meetings that the committee had, if you wanted to have one every month, focused on a topic
I see.
of something? And so I threw out there, well, if you have 3 goals for this year, what if we start tackling one of those goals or start talking about it? And that's where the accessory apartment one came in,
Okay.
because we have some information on it and it's floating around, and it might be easier to engage folks more specifically on that topic. So that's sort of the birth of the
Okay.
accessory apartment idea. But this is the first meeting to talk about that. Oh, I forgot to plug in with the committee.
Also, I think that, and everything you said, yes, is correct, Aaron, but I think also in addition to that, we've had the public meetings where people have asked general questions and we've analyzed them. We now know that we have to have fewer presentations and more conversation. That we can't really do a Zoom meeting unless we have a better way of promoting it so that people are more likely to attend it. But you're absolutely right. I think we want to move ahead, and Bennett's committee there working on bringing up things that we should be recommending. And one of the things we'd like to recommend is to change the ordinances having to do with ADUs in the town. And we think they're also an easy way of expanding the housing without going through a very major change in everything that's, what everybody's thinking about. And since we're already allowed to have them, to bring them up, because the point you made early on is that people are permitted to do ADUs, but they don't do them. There are very few people do them, let's put it that way, in town. So this is something that maybe a lot of people, particularly some of the older people that have come to our meetings, might find interesting. And I don't know. But I think that we need to structure the meeting more than we have right here. I think this is, I mean, I don't know, and I don't think we should sit here about it and say, okay, what should we strike from the meeting? There's things in each one of these that are important, and I don't want to take the time to say, well, let's take out section 5, because I think section 5 has community engagement, education and dialogue. That's important to bring out. So I think we need to think about what kind of presentation are we going to make, and whether we need to go through several slides and then an hour and a half. And these slides are going to take, and people are going to ask questions, even if
No,
there's.
but public input in questions or statements are built into each one of these. It's not 10 minutes of talking through a slide. The whole presentation, including the public input, the slide may be 45 seconds.
And
Well-
you're meaning that you would, this is devoted approximately 10 minutes of time for presentation, questions and answers?
Yes.
Okay, I was reading this as that this was 10 minutes of presentation. Okay.
This is
Okay,
an hour
you're
and
just
40
meaning,
it's an
you're
hour and
meaning that
40
each section is,
It's an hour and 45 minutes.
My point is we have
Eric
eight-
is aware that it's too long,
We have 8 slides.
so.
And there are 8 slides, and if people want to ask more questions about any one of these things, we're not going to cut them off because we said the 10 minutes is over. So we have to be a little bit more flexible in being able to present this information.
So I think, first, let me just say, if you had a chance to read it, you'll see that this is not a recommendation of anything. This is a laying out of the subject.
Right.
Based on the research that Eric and I have done, and a desire to get as much input as we can from folks, or at least to give them enough information to prompt their consideration of what they might be interested in doing. We'll work backwards. Why don't we start by thinking about what is the ideal length of the meeting?
Well,
And,
let's assume it's 90 minutes. Let's take that as a
Okay.
given, okay?
okay,
But my problem is that there may be important stuff towards the back of this that we will not get to because we'll use up our hour and a half. I mean, I go back to our very first meeting where we filled up almost the entire time with presentations and
but we're not going to do that. We're not going to talk
but
beyond.
only if
minimum.
if you're gonna say to people they can't ask any more questions on.
Well, I think what we would have to say, Mark, is we've got a lot to cover, and we're going to try to stick to this agenda. And we will build time in at the end for people who didn't get a chance to ask a particular question or concern. But there's a lot to cover here. We ask your indulgence and facilitate it.
And we may need to build in just that we'll be here a little bit longer.
Oh, yeah, and we'll certainly stay
But
as long as anybody wants after the meeting. And we'll also be happy to take comments you have or questions you have later on. And here's our website, right? And we encourage you to post your question or email your question if it occurs to you later. So it's a lot of things we could do, I think. Bear in mind that this is not meant to resolve anything. It's merely a way to sort of start the conversation.
I think one of my concerns is just the logistics of the meeting also, and having the committee be part of planning this event. Whether an event being successful was a lot of staff preparing a room. What is our layout? We talked about all these things. Who is introducing? Who is, closing? Who do we want as our key people here? This is a new venue. The committee hasn't had an opportunity to talk about that. Do we want food? It's at 6 o'clock. We're at the senior, like what do we envision for this meeting? I don't want that left for staff to try to figure out between now and the 22nd without having
All good
the
questions.
committee.
Should we
all
try to
good
answer
questions.
those?
All right, yeah, they're all good questions.
Well, so we're getting,
I'll give you my opinion. I don't think we need food. I mean, I think that's a lot of work and when we had the thing here, did anyone even hardly get a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
All the
It
people
wasn't
that
that
got
bad. I mean, I can provide coffee, so that's
Yeah,
not
I
a
think
concern. I can make
water,
that
Bottle
it's
of water.
fine.
Right,
I don't
'cause it's
think,
gonna be
I
at
think
the
Right,
food
senior
is
center.
yeah,
something.
I can have coffee made for the.
Can we have
Right.
water as well?
what did,
We had little bottles.
we
of
had
water.
we'd buy
We'd
it.
have to, yeah, we'd have to arrange to buy that.
Is that a problem?
No,
Well,
It
no,
it is in my
For me-
budget,
for
because I
me
just
to-
blew my legal
Yeah, I
notice
mean, I
budget
don't-
and had to
I'm happy.
transfer all of
I'm
my,
happy
so we
to
have
pay
to
for the
get
water.
it.
I'm happy to pay for the water.
Well, I'm not, this isn't meant to be, a challenge. I think part of my thought of today, I didn't know that was, I guess I didn't assume that we wouldn't be meeting again before the 22nd. And so that's a lot of, like, all of a sudden to start
Right.
brainstorming for this. And that was my only thought of, maybe it's worth meeting briefly on the 15th to have this final layout. We want to, right, we want a flyer for this, we want to advertise.
If we're gonna meet briefly on the 15th, why don't we talk briefly tonight and get it done?
Well, I'm not sure
I don't think we
everybody's
should do it.
prepared
I honestly.
No, no,
to address
no,
it
just-
right now.
Pardon?
Coffee, water.
Oh,
cookies.
yeah, we don't need, we can do that. We're gonna have coffee and water, no cookies.
We don't need anything.
Done.
Okay,
Alright.
and Mark is the
And
chair.
round
We'll-
tables?
We'll open, we're gonna sit, that's why we're in the senior center. We're gonna sit at the tables.
Okay,
Well,
so
that's
you-
what we just need to
Okay,
confirm.
so
That's
That
the
was whole-
layout that you
You may not
want.
have been here, but that was the whole reason for going there. Because it does
Yeah,
facilitate.
we did this with the first meeting, we sat around with everybody, we didn't have a dais, and we shouldn't have a dais. We should have a podium probably for somebody to get up there and maybe talk.
But
And we need to
the
have to
participants are
share
gonna be at
something
round
on
tables in
screen.
the cafeteria.
Yeah, and we should be at the tables.
And that will
Sitting at the
facilitate.
tables.
No, these are individual round tables that fit 10 people at each
Yeah.
table.
And
That's
I would say
I'm
not
just saying
even,
that
not
we
even
did-
10,
I thought it was
no.
very successful at the first meeting that we sat around with people and didn't have a dais. And
And,
I think we don't have to have a dais.
and in fact, because we're doing the small groups, having us each at a different table will help facilitate that.
Yes,
I like that.
we get
idea.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
And what are the,
the existing
what are
setup,
the
so-
logistics then? Because I think we need to have the
Plan
meeting
for
next,
16.
on the 15th anyway. I mean, I think that,
Well,
We need to-
we're
Whatever the
not
normal
gonna be here.
Well,
but I-
well, we could put down extra
Okay.
tables and chairs.
You
just
mean
to
a
make sure.
pre-game meeting?
let's have a pre-game meeting. It's not a
Okay.
meeting, that's a working group meeting. Let's-
Right, a working group
Yeah.
meeting. We can do it on Zoom.
I think we need to do it in person.
I'll bring the
uh,
Promethean board out.
and I think-
We'll use.
let's
we'll
see
use
if we
any-
can
that's
have
what they
a,
did,
uh,
right? John.
What is the date here? The 15th is not. Thank you for reminding me. My wife was
Yeah, but I have one of these.
You're gonna have to leave for
Yeah.
Westchester.
No.
No,
We
not
can
yet.
use
We
the
can
big
still
one.
plug in.
Yes, yeah, you can plug into that, that's fine.
Okay,
We gotta find out, we gotta move the podium back in.
can we, without violating any rules or regulations, can we have a working group meeting on the 16th?
Here's the problem with picking a date now, you know,
Yeah.
we need to,
Or Friday?
ensure that, we pick a time that Eric can join us.
Why don't you check with Eric? See, you doing that now? Oh, okay, let's just check with Eric and see.
I can't meet on the 16th.
Can you meet on the 17th? That's the Friday.
We're only here in the morning.
I know that
Do the
Eric,
morning and 17th.
prefers to meet, in the morning early, like 9.
Well, can we have a meeting over at the senior center at 9 o'clock?
On the
What
17th?
day are we talking?
That's Friday the
Friday the
17th.
17th.
I don't have
Would be
my
able to check with her.
computer to be able to check that.
Can it just be a Zoom meeting?
Better not be bocce day.
I think
That's
it's
Tuesday, Thursday.
Let's leave that as an option. Let's say that we might, this is a working group meeting, not an official committee meeting. It's to prepare for the public meeting the following week. And let's make it a in-person meeting as we go through the next 2 weeks and try to resolve some of these things beforehand, so we don't go into the meeting starting.
Yeah, we're not gonna do the agenda in the committee as a whole.
No.
That would be insane. What I'd like to propose is that, Eric and I will redo the agenda so that the meeting is 90 minutes and that there's 15 minutes at the end for whatever.
I would like to join you in that because I really think that this needs to be about a third. The topics should be a third. I mean, you know, what are ADUs? And what's the current Madison zoning regulations before you even get into the benefits of what can be done in town right now? And what do we are thinking about changing? I mean, that kind of thing.
That could be.
Yeah, that's more of a beginning and,
Well, that is the first substantive beginning.
what are
The first two-
ADUs and
yeah,
followed
the
by the
first-
zoning regulations, yeah, by 2 followed by 4, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that I really think we have to sit down and do it. If you want to have a meeting with Eric, I would like to be at the meeting and we can then figure out what we're gonna do. How's that?
You got it.
And so right now, there will not be a meeting of the working group, the entire committee for the 22nd.
It will not be.
But you're in the working group too, right?
Right, well, I was part,
Monica, right?
but I've been.
Yeah, sure. It just depends on what day it is. So that you guys.
Jane is not around anyway, so. I'm not sure.
So when are we meeting?
Well, I'm suggesting the 17th.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's, yeah, for the moment.
All right.
And
Where are you looking to meet?
The senior center.
I think probably the easiest thing would be the senior center. When the
We'll have to check for
I
availability.
can email you
We'll have to
tomorrow
check for
morning on that.
availability
Yeah,
for the rooms.
One of the conference rooms upstairs.
How about we can follow up with an email?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
email you tomorrow morning.
So you're gonna check with Eric. If you can do the 17th. If you can't do the 17th, then we're gonna have to move it again.
So if as I'm reading this, is the thrust of the presentation to just instigate, first of all, to just make people aware of the concept and to,
And some of our thoughts about what we think should change to make this more, why we think this is a good idea. And also why, I mean, there's the second item would be further down with the benefits of ADUs and what do we want to be recommending and what we will be recommending.
what
With feedback.
what we're going to recommend isn't on here.
No, we're not making recommendations.
No, we
It
wanna
is
get-
in your plan
but we want to talk
We're not-
about,
accessory units. So it would be, I think it would be relevant to tie it into the affordable housing plan as one of the action items. And so
It's a high priority action in the plan, but there are no details in the plan.
no, but we want to recommend, I mean, I'm going to jump the gun here, but I think we want to recommend the expanded use of ADUs in Madison. That is a recommendation.
Right, that is our task. We are
Well,
charged.
but it's
with-
also a recommendation. We think that the town should do this, right?
Yeah, right.
Right? I mean, that's
Yes.
the basic.
We want to increase the use of ADUs, want to make them easier to use.
And why we think that's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And then,
And we want people's ideas about how to do that.
Right.
We're not making recommendations about how to do it. We're talking about what others have done. We're talking about what the state statute envisions. We're talking about what our current rules are, and we want to hear from people about their experiences.
or what do they think of the
desires.
idea? What do they think of the idea?
That's the purpose.
I think that's 1, 2, 3. I think that's more what I would be thinking about, but. So we know one thing, no cookies, right?
That's the one thing we have
Okay,
decided.
we decided that, that's firm.
And I will make
And-
coffee.
And water and coffee.
And water and coffee, that's
Who's-
2 things.
who is
Good.
speaking, who's presenting for the
Facilitating.
town? Yeah, and facilitating.
I
The
think,
last time we were lucky and we had two
Yeah,
hired
guns.
consultants who were
Hired guns.
here to help facilitate, but this one is the committee fully running this.
yes.
Yes.
So
Good
I
point.
think that
I
structure
think
would
that's
be
something we have
helpful
talk
to
about. Obviously,
identify.
Eric and Bennett are the most familiar with.
Yeah,
this
Eric and
information,
Ben's
so,
point.
Well, Aaron has volunteered to present the current regulations.
See that.
Yeah, and we met with Aaron yesterday and we spent an hour going through them and exploring some of the implications of what we have and don't have and what the state law would bring and where that might be desirable and where it's not necessarily the right answer for us. None of that is, and I don't think we want to get too far in the weeds.
Some of that's too,
with the
yeah, we
law.
gotta leave it higher level.
It's
for
got to
the
be
public.
much higher level. We're not at the point where we're trying to frame recommendations.
That's what I just said. What we want to do though is we have a recommendation. I'm not sure why you're resisting this thing, but we are going to make a recommendation
Yeah, I'm
that
sorry.
we expand the use, that a good way of addressing affordable housing in Madison is to expand the use of ADUs. That's a first step.
Right.
Well,
right.
that is, I mean,
That
that's
is a
I think what-
recommendation
yeah.
without content.
without content. No,
Yes.
but that's our that is,
But our formal recommendation will have a lot of content,
But
And it
that's
will be
down
based
the
on
road.
what we hear from you.
And
We're
we
not
want you-
prepared to do that because we haven't heard from the community at all.
right, and they all say this is a terrible idea,
So-
and so we've been.
Right, so identifying key points or information that you're looking to gather from the community, like, would you consider building an ADU if, as an option of downsizing and renting, your home and
Right.
living in that, like, proposing different options? Is that,
I think that's a good
would
idea.
your
Yeah.
family, you want to bring your kids, want to move back into town, but they can't afford to live? Have you considered building an accessory unit that perhaps, a relative could live in? Or are you comfortable renting,
No,
things,
I
kind
understand.
of, these kinds of things that you can help form our recommendations in the future, or how do you, the tax abatements or something like that, how?
Yeah, all of those questions were intended, yeah. And
I see that you were kind of touching on them, but yeah, I think to pinpoint maybe clearer for the committee to kind of understand
Mhm.
why, the reasons for presenting and what we're
Okay.
looking to get out of
All
it.
right, I think we have a plan, I think, the next few days to
Can I
figure
say,
out what we're gonna
if
do.
we're
Yeah.
putting people at tables, then people are,
People are allowed to sit at tables, we're not
Oh.
seating them, we're not seating
no,
people to sit.
you had suggested that we
Each
each
of
sit at
us.
a table. And then but then I think those people are gonna be inclined to ask that person questions.
But
So-
not, they will, but not through
that's not our job.
not through
Or
the
maybe each
presentation.
table gets a question as a talking point
No, no, no,
that
no,
you
no.
guys can
Yeah.
talk
I meant-
amongst
No,
yourselves.
I meant-
you're talking about the committee
If-
members being at each
Yes, if a
individual
committee
table.
member is sitting at a table, then the people at the table, I don't know if there's all I wanted to make sure is that they're supposed to be
In the hot
answering
seat,
questions.
right,
You know what I
that's-
mean?
yeah.
You know what I'm getting at?
You're there to facilitate the small group discussion. There will be questions, a
Mhm.
question or multiple questions framed. And the small group will then discuss it, and ideally,
Mhm.
we'd have very brief report back. And so one possibility is for the committee member to volunteer to be the reporter, unless someone else at the table can be encouraged to do
So
it.
you're
we could just do
anticipating
the
people
floor
talking on
show.
these tables separately from each other
After the presentation.
after the presentation,
Well,
not
as
a
part
conversation
of-
at large?
as part of the
So that's what we
presentation,
should-
it will be a breakout.
Yeah.
In your table,
Oh,
we'd like you to discuss
Yeah,
X,
paragraph.
okay,
and you've
So
got,
that's why that's at the end.
you got 12 and a half minutes,
I get it.
and at the end of that, and you gotta have a reporter, and you're gonna get a 30-second report out.
No,
It's
then,
speed
yeah,
dating,
15
basically.
minutes is a long time.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you.
I mean, I guess I should go on the record and just say, and I obviously will keep my opinions to myself, but I'm not the biggest fan of this ADU thing. I'm just, it's just my opinion.
okay.
So I'm not gonna be presenting anything. And
Well, no,
I'll be
but
very
you-
neutral,
you
but
have-
that's just my
yeah.
opinion. First of all, in my opinion, this does not further affordable housing, capital A.
Mhm.
It doesn't. And that's, in my opinion, that's what I think the bigger goal is of this
Understood.
committee.
We've had this discussion several times, and as a committee, we adopted this as one of our 3 priorities for the year. And we've had this discussion about capital and small a.
No, I mean, well, we haven't had a discussion about ADUs at
No,
all.
we had the
but-
discussion
yeah.
about capital. and
No.
small.
Yeah, so anyway, so I'm not the biggest fan of this because I don't really think it furthers the affordable housing thing. And also I also have a lot of concerns about, and I said some to Matt, to Bennett, about size, setbacks, parking. Because I live in a part of town where it's very tight. And controlling that doesn't turn into an Airbnb issue. How do you control that? So for me, this is just a topic that just pushes a lot of buttons because it's not my favorite thing to be in favor of. I'm not against it per se. And I think that there's a lot of properties where it can happen easily and nicely. People have barns and, but if I think about where I live, I see that it could be very problematic. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on the whole thing.
I think some of the issues you're talking about would be handled by the planning and zoning, would make the rules about it.
But we're
Including
having a
the-
discussion that we're gonna be recommending things.
We haven't recommended anything
No.
yet.
No, but we will be.
We will indeed, yeah. But the town has to address the issue of Airbnb beyond ADUs.
Yeah,
And
Yes,
the
they-
town is not ready yet to take a policy position, and, you know, there are pros and cons.
yeah, I mean, that's not the biggest problem, I'm just saying that is.
That's where you live. There are people
Another
who would
thing.
say that's the biggest problem right now, is very.
Yeah.
But-
I mean, accessory apartment regulations have existed in town since 1989.
Yeah,
So they
There's
are,
no restriction on rental.
and they have, you know,
but there didn't used to be that kind of rental. Until recently, but anyway, the rental part is just one thing.
Okay, so I think
Anyway,
we've noted that, and I think it's worth it being in the minutes that Francine is not totally convinced yet that this is the way to go. In fairness, I mean, that's what you feel,
Yeah.
we should report it. Thought we accomplished everything with the cookies, but I guess.
I'm
we should-
exhausted.
Can I
Come
just
on,
make,
public, you love this stuff, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna, well, one, Chris's presentation was really wonderful, I felt.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Thank you, Aaron, for bringing him in. I think it's I think it's something we can all agree upon. Nicely done. But to piggyback on what Francine is saying, I too follow these meetings as a public member and participated on the 17th. And feel as though I missed out on something as well from the 17th to today, whether it was debriefing from that meeting or whatever, under the, nomenclature working, a working group. And just to I enjoy being part of the sausage making. I'd like to hear the discussion. I'd like to talk about ADUs publicly without it feeling like ex parte communication between a few members.
Right.
That are sort of deciding and steering, because you guys are having a public meeting and the board isn't even in consensus that this is what you want to be going, but you and Eric Bennett are having meetings and putting together slides, and I, as a member of the public, have the right to follow along, and I'm not privy to these working sessions. So I question the transparency. Madison is built upon transparency.
Oh,
Okay, so
There you-
staff meeting with a couple members to go over our existing accessory apartment regulations is not a transparency
That's
issue. We were
fine.
not building slides, making decisions on behalf of a commission. And so I think the meetings that you're referring to are public meetings. What has happened, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with regionally, SCROG
Sure.
has hired consultants and has a housing working group. It is, they're all open to the public. You're invited to attend them. They began as just folks from regionally who come together to talk about how to better housing.
Sure.
And so I have attended those meetings initially, and Heather attended those meetings initially. They date back from before we created the affordable housing plan. SCROG has put funding forward for a facilitator to help gain momentum like on a grassroots level, right? Being able to have folks going out into the, for where they call power mapping, who are the influential people in town who may not be governmental leaders or anything, but the folks that people go to around town. And so Ben Fink is the facilitator that SCROG used. We decided as a town, the selectman's office and us, that we would participate with Ben and learn some things about facilitating and reaching out, how he's been doing this in other municipalities. So that's been going on for over a year. It started with just Ben and I, and then introduced Heather, and, so it's slowly little people who have, joined this conversation about how we do these community conversations, not under the structure of the Affordable Housing Committee. Folks from the committee are interested in participating in that, as well as other folks from other towns. The goal is to kind of grow the layers of the onion so that this housing working group becomes very large throughout our community, and can support the Affordable Housing Committee as well. When they come up with ideas to support, then we have folks coming in. So that's, you're more than welcome to attend those meetings and,
So I-
and share that information. It's not a committee, a formal committee meeting. I don't know, are you on that
So I
email
follow
list from
Madison,
Scrog?
For example, so here's the app, and I go to the calendar weekly. and
They're
I
not
look at
town
the calendar.
meetings. They're not
I
town meetings.
understand. I follow Scrog, so
Okay.
it comes up, so I follow it. But if you're having conversations that are debriefing meetings that were held publicly, which it sounds like you alluded to, then that I think is inappropriate, because I think as a community, we should be having the discussion how the last meeting went, and it sounds like communication was had that I wasn't privy to. I certainly didn't hear you guys discuss how the last meeting went.
You are correct.
Thank
You
you.
are correct. We did not have the formal meeting after the last one, which was the Zoom meeting. We did talk about it and mentioned what happened at the thing, but no decisions were made at that SCROG meeting, one that Ben Fink was supporting. But you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
Can I also just say, before you joined us, we voted in open meeting that we would have 3 priorities for this year. There are 3 specific concrete, in addition to the broader promotional education work that we were doing, one of which is ADUs, and we have a work group. And Eric and I are the sole members of that work group. And
On ABUs.
on ADUs, right? We have other groups on Housing Trust Fund and on how to structure a municipal entity to facilitate and promote the actual development of the housing as opposed to setting policies and changing regulations. ADUs is the farthest along, and I wasn't part of the discussion at the SCROG meeting that said we should do ADUs, but it makes total sense. A, because it is one of 3 priorities. B, because it is the farthest along. And I think C, because it has the broadest appeal for folks in general about the housing situation in Madison. I differ strongly with Francine that it's not relevant to affordable capital A housing. It is not focused exclusively on that, but it can be used for that. But more importantly, anything, I think, in our town that provides variety and increased volume of housing is going to have an impact on affordable housing as well, because we don't have adequate housing at all levels. And so if you create downsizing opportunities for seniors who move into appropriate size dwelling units, right? You're making homes available to young families, et cetera. So
I
that's the
understand your
rationale.
argument.
And-
And my point is, we went from 2 meetings ago, planning the meeting on the 17th, to now planning the meeting that's coming up. And now it's on ADUs, but I don't recall ever you guys discussing publicly to make that a public conversation on ADUs.
I agree with you.
That's
That was today, that was supposed to be today's conversation. That is correct. So ideas can be suggested amongst, at the time of the working group, but decisions for the committee and conversations about the committee. And I'm not saying your subcommittees of this, I'm talking about the housing working group that we meet with,
Total
those.
different entity.
It is a different entity and it's not a town, it's
Right.
interested parties from the town brainstorming. They're not making any regulatory. So when a suggestion is made there for the committee, it does need to come back here for your discussion
And I don't
of
think I
that.
have the agenda, but did you get the agenda at all?
It's public. The
Yeah, it's
agenda
public. You- but you were-
is on,
On item number 5 is public meeting scheduling and reporting. And I'm afraid at this particular meeting, we got into the scheduling part a lot and not so much the reporting. But I mean, I wrote the agenda and I believe that's exactly what we should have been doing here, and we did not do it. So we are corrected. We stand corrected.
but thank you for volunteering. I appreciate it.
If there's nobody else, no one else, yes, all right. Anything, Anthony, any?
I'm good.
Francine, more? Okay, then the meeting's adjourned at 6:02.
You want to just sit end meeting there? Mark?
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.